Again, we're going to begin with the Torah speaks about Joseph. So it says that his father gave him v'asalok sonas pasim. He made him a special tunic, special vestment, special article of clothing, and he gave him preferential treatment. And because of that preferential treatment, it engendered jealousy. His brothers harbored jealousy in their hearts against him. From this, the Talmud tells us that a parent should never play favorites with their children, even if they have a kid that's more charismatic, or a kid that's brighter, or a kid that's more beautiful or handsome. There's a natural inclination to favor that kid over another kid. If one is an only child, they could get all the love in the world. But if the parent has to split the love, and that's the miracle about love, is that I once interviewed a family in which there were 10 children in the family, somebody I knew quite well, and I asked each of the children, I said, who loves you more than anything in this world? And each of the children said, his mother. And I said, do you feel that you receive all the love of your mother? And each child said yes. Now, if love was a physical property, it would have to be divisible. It could not be, as much as a mother loves all her children equally, if she has a $10 million inheritance, not bad, and she has 10 children, she's not giving each of those children $10 million. Money, anything monetary, is physical, and therefore it's confined by the physical, and therefore each child will get $1 million, not $10 million. But love is something that's spiritual, and love is something transcendental, and therefore everybody can feel someone's love equally. So in this case, though, our patriarch, Jacob, it seems that there was a little blemish, there was a little imperfection in his parenting, and something that we learned from, because the Avos and Amos, the patriarchs and matriarchs were there. They were the semel, they were the paradigm, they were the blueprint for us, and that's why the Sefer Bereshit, the book of Genesis, is called Sefer Avos. It's called the book of the fathers, book of the patriarchs, because it's really the book of parenting. The Sefer HaYosher, otherwise it's known as Sefer Yosher, which means book of the just, book of the ethics, because it's there to teach us how to mold ourselves, how to mold our children, how to strive for perfection, how to become better people. And all the incidences and all the scenarios that are transpired and that are taught in the Torah are not to, God forbid, ridicule, are not to, God forbid, be derogatory of the Avos, but are there because they are our teachers. And one of the lessons we learn is that a parent should not play favorites, that Yaakov was partial to this one son, and therefore it caused enmity, it caused animosity, and ultimately it led to a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Vayisnu also, the Torah says that the brothers hated him, they detested him, and v'lo yachlu l'daber l'shalom, they couldn't be peaceful with him. And one of the reasons for this is that Yosef was what we'd call today a rat. Yosef, he had the best intentions. He was a pure person, but a little perhaps naive, and therefore he saw his brothers doing things that he thought were unbecoming, and really they were very justified in what they were doing. He thought they were eating forbidden foods. He thought they were engaging in forbidden relationships, and they weren't, but he didn't know the full picture. And as bright as he was, he should have investigated more. He should have consulted with his father, and he didn't. And he basically besmirched them and badmouthed them. And therefore, he raised their ire. And he got them upset, to Yaakov. He got them upset. So their perception of Yosef was that he was a rebel rouser, and that he was mutiny. He was mutinous. He was causing mutiny in the family, and he was rebelling against the authority of Yehuda, who was the sign of royalty, and against also the prominence of Reuben, who was supposed to be the firstborn. Yosef was the second to last child. He didn't have the kingship, he didn't have the royalty, the monarchy. He didn't have the firstborn rights, although he may have, in a certain sense, perceived that he did, because his mother was supposed to be the first wife. Rachel was supposed to be the first wife, but because of the cunning and deceiving Lavan, because of Yaakov's father-in-law, who beguiled Yaakov, so Leah ended up being the first wife. Really, had everything gone according to plan, Yosef would have been the firstborn. And maybe there was this dormant feeling through Yosef that really he should be the leader of the brothers, and it could be that the brothers detected that. So he was causing tremendous family strife, and he was also, again, viewed as being an incipient tyrant to not only the immediate family, but the entire destiny of the Jewish people, of really the legacy of the Jewish people, and therefore the brothers ended up deeming him worthy of punishment, of severe punishment. But before we get into that, I'd like to concentrate a little on the fact that Yosef had dreams. And the dreams compounded the issue, because in the dreams, Yosef portrays himself as being the ruler. And, the brothers view it as very bombastic and very egomaniacal. So, but Torah tells us, Vayachalom Yosef Chalom. He has a dream, and then he has another dream. This parsha is replete with dreams, because the end of the parsha speaks about the minister of wine and the minister of the bakery, and both of them also have dreams. So there's something special about dreams, and I'd like to now, tonight, discuss the subject of dreams. I didn't say you should fall asleep and dream on me. I see everybody's getting excited, getting that, well, it's freezing outside, I could get, comfortable and warm and just go to sleep. No. Dreaming. Rabbeinu Bechaya tells us that a dream comes from three potential areas. And science doesn't necessarily agree with this. As far as I know, I may be mistaken. But Rabbeinu Bechaya says that the first cause of a person to dream is food-related. Now, there are statistical surveys that have been conducted that show that people say that when they have sharp food or spicy food, it causes one type of dream. We have dairy food, it causes another type of dream. But there's a correlation between the metabolism, digestive system, according to Rabbeinu Bechaya, and sleep, and ultimately dreams. And therefore, according to the Chazal, according to the rabbis, sleep, dreams, and food are related. So it means if you have a real juicy steak, what you're going to dream of? Cows, right? I don't know. But that's Rabbeinu Bechaya. Then he says something else. Then he says something that's very deep, and something that the Talmud says. Freud, Sigmund Freud is known for his dream interpretation, amongst other things. But the fact is that many say that he actually was anybody know the term? When you go to college and you copy something, it's called plagiarism, precisely. Never be accused of plagiarism. You have to be a president to be accused of plagiarism, right? Or first lady. They're accused of taking other people's scripts, but plagiarism it's not ethical. So they say that Freud was a plagiarist. Some say that he actually took a lot of his dream interpretation material from the Talmud. If you look at the Talmud Tractate Brachos, Mesechus Brachos, Daf Samachay, so there's a blot over there. There's a whole folio devoted to dream interpretation. Some very fascinating observations about dreams. One of the observations is that if somebody dreams that his teeth fall out. Now, okay, if a guy just went for a root canal, and he goes home and he goes to sleep at night, and he has a dream about his teeth falling out, I would not be concerned. Root canal, especially depending on which dentist you use, it can be traumatic, to go for root canal, right? But the Gemara says if somebody dreams about his teeth falling out or her teeth falling out, then chas v'shalom, it's very ominous, and it's a portent for terrible things. The Gemara actually says it means that Rachmana litzlan, chas v'shalom, God forbid, that a person's children will die. What's interesting is that this is actually codified in the halacha. The Shulchan Aruch speaks about it in Siman Reish Pei Ches, and that's in 288 of the laws of Shabbos, because the law is that if somebody does have a bad dream, then to a degree, one is supposed to take his dreams seriously. Now we'll discuss whether that's actually the halacha or not, but it speaks about certain dreams. It says if you see a Torah scroll burning, God forbid, in your dream, then you have to take it very seriously. If you see your teeth falling out, if you see the beams of your house that the beams are corroding and that the beams are basically imploding, that the beams are collapsing, you have to take that very seriously. The Talmud says that if you see the doorway of your house disintegrating, it means chas v'shalom that the woman of your house is represented by the doorway because she's akar sabai, she's the foundation, she's the cornerstone of the house. It means that chas v'shalom something terrible will happen to her. So actually, the code of Jewish law says that if you have a bad dream, sometimes you have to fast. And it discusses whether or not you're allowed to fast on Shabbos. Because usually on Shabbos we have a commandment that we're supposed to eat. We're supposed to revel in the Shabbos. We're supposed to have all the most delicious and enticing, delectable, succulent foods, right? It says, basar v'dagim v'chol matamim, that meat, fish, and all the delicacies you're supposed to have on Shabbos. As a matter of fact, if you get a delectable food during the week, that is a little of a rarity or anomaly for you, you're not supposed to eat it during the week. You're actually supposed to save it. Like if you have sushi, you're supposed to save that sushi. But if sushi is a perishable item, I don't know how you could save it. It doesn't stay well in the refrigerator, right? Let's say ice cream sundae or something. Some real good treat. You're supposed to actually keep it for Shabbos because Shabbos is when you're supposed to enjoy things the most. So therefore, it's a problem. You're not supposed to fast. Now, by the way, if a person is on a diet and eating would be painful for that person, then, for example, let's say a person's a vegan and they don't want to eat on Shabbos, or they don't want to eat meat. We had a student at BJX who came to my house, and she says she's a vegan. I had nothing, for those that are not familiar, vegans, forget about meat, anything from a living creature, anything. Eggs, milk, anything. Basically, that eliminates and precludes almost any conceivable item possible, okay? So, for example, I offered her bread. She says, 1 second, doesn't the bread may have eggs in it? I said, I think you're right. Wheat. I think wheat is okay, right? For vegans, I think wheat is okay. But I think, you know what? The only thing that she was able to have was salad. I felt like I was feeding a rabbit, She's munching away. But you know why she became a vegan? This is holy. This is like the holy of holies. Because she turned to God. She was, raised in a secular Jewish home without any real observance. And she found out that God has a diet called kosher. And by the way, kosher is chaf sin shin resh, which is the same letters as kisar, which means like a prince. You see, the reason why God gives us the kosher menu is not because he's supposed to torture us, and not because he's this draconian lord over us saying, oh, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. He says, you have a special culinary appetite. You're supposed to have a special culinary appetite. You can't just eat anything. You're a prince, right? The Prince of England, or the Prince of any place, they have, a whole culinary, they have a chef. Everything is prepared meticulously. And you think that they're going to go to McDonald's or Burger King, like our president likes fast food? It doesn't, listen, we have to be very sensitive. Unfortunately, he was impeached last night. He must be taking it very hard. So we don't want to say anything, that will hurt him more. He's a great man, great president. But he likes fast food. So we're not talking about him. But royalty, everything is finesse. Everything is etiquette. When you're Jewish, it means you're the prince or princess of God. And therefore, everything that you do, every way that you conduct yourself in a befitting way. You conduct yourself in a royal way. You conduct yourself in an elegant way, in a distinguished way. And therefore, you don't just eat anything. You eat things that are in tune, that are in consonance, that are compatible with your status, with your royal status. And God says, this is the menu. The same thing with dress. The reason why religious Jews dress in a more conservative way is not because we're penguins, black and white, okay? It's because it's just considered to be more elegant, more distinguished. By the way, a lot of people wonder why religious Jews wear hats. Because, in the turn of the century, anybody that was distinguished, anybody that was modest, that was common etiquette. People wore hats. And even today, many people that go to church, they wear hats to church. They may take it off in church, right? A lot of religions that make you take off your hats in church, but they wear hats to church. So whether it's your code of conduct and your dress and your diet, whatever it is, you are kosher. Kosher means proper. That's what kosher means, okay? So Many people don't know that. They have no idea what kosher means. Kosher, to demystify the intrigue of what kosher means, a kosher cow does not mean, by the way, I met people that think that a kosher cow means that the cow was circumcised. That's not what it means, okay? Not at all, okay? I don't know how you would circumcise a cow, but that's not what it means. A kosher cow means simply that it's a cow, so therefore it's a ruminant, and it and also has split hooves, and that it was slaughtered in the right way, and it doesn't have any internal physiological defects, okay? But as far as kosher means proper, and therefore a Jew is supposed to be proper, he's supposed to be royalty, kisar, like a prince, and that's how it's supposed to be. So, back to what we were discussing, so this girl that came to BJX, she was so holy that she turned her life around. She wanted to become kosher, but her parents thought that she's becoming a Neanderthal, that she's becoming like this antiquated, and that she is now, just insane. So she couldn't eat anything in her parents' house, and so she realized that the best thing to do is just to become a vegan, and therefore she's not insulting them, and everything works out. So I said, well, now that you're in my house, you could indulge. You could have chicken and meat and fish, whatever, and eggs. She says, no, you don't understand, Rabbi. She says, if I deviate here, I'm not disciplined then I lose my consistency. I said, wow. Like, I was just in awe. That's a holy person, amazing. I was awestruck. Anyhow, so Shabbos would be the exception, even though you're not allowed to fast on Shabbos, unless your fasting causes you joy. If you can't, for fasting, for whatever the reason, a person that, I think that person is a little, perhaps, I don't want to ridicule because I don't know if people like fasting, but I'm saying if fasting, causes joy, sounds a little odd, but then the person's allowed to fast on Shabbos. But otherwise, the only time a person's allowed to fast on Shabbos is if the person has a dream that is not a healthy dream, then the person is allowed to fast on Shabbos. And that's the halacha. The Bir Halacha says, the Bir Halacha was written by the Chavetz Chaim, he says if a person does not have children, and he dreams that his teeth is falling out, then he doesn't have to worry, because then nothing terrible will happen to his children, because he doesn't have children for it to actually happen too. Okay, but let's go back to Rabbeinu B'chai. Rabbeinu B'chai says that dreams come from food, it comes from what you were thinking about, and that's what Freud, that is very, I think that it jives well with Freud's approach, to dreams. And also, the third element of dreams is that it comes from something spiritual. As a matter of fact, the Zohar HaKadosh, the Holy Zohar says that dreams is a small part of prophecy. That dreams could be prophecy. It depends on the person, depends on the situation, but it could be prophecy. Now, I want to tell you something amazing about dreams that the Orcha Tzadikim says. You have to understand that we are three-dimensional creatures. As people, we're three-dimensional, right? That means we have depth. We live in a three-dimensional universe. However, our vision, our sight, is limited. It's limited to two-dimension. We cannot see three-dimension. Unless you put on three-dimensional glasses and watch an IMAX film, right? Something to that effect. We don't see three-dimensionally. Okay, the way that we relate to the world is visual, spatial, and vestibular. Vestibular, let's refer to the way our balance is. And through basically Newtonian physics. We cannot conceive things that would defy Newtonian physics. We are limited by time and space. Says Orcha Tzadikim something fascinating. He says that a dream is no longer within the physical universe. And therefore, in a dream, you could see higher dimensions. You could see beyond the two-dimension. Not only that, but a dream, you are no longer circumscribed, you are no longer within the parameters of the physical universe, and therefore, you're no longer bound by time. And therefore, past, present, and future is different in a dream than it is in your physical life. When you dream, when you sleep, there is a certain sense of paralysis of your body. Some of your bodily functions actually shut down. And the process of sleep is at first the brain emits delta waves, and then it goes into REM sleep mode. And you're basically transplanted into a different sphere. And that sphere has you more in touch with your neshama, in a certain sense, with your soul, than with your physical body. And therefore, you could be privy to the portal, to the gateway of another world. And that's why Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in Yaros Devash says that you could have a dream that encompasses an entire lifetime almost, or certainly many hours, and it could all transpire within a matter of seconds. Because you're no longer bound by time. Time is a convention that it was created as part of the physical universe. God is above time, because God created time. Man is limited by time. But Hashem wanted us to see that there is a spiritual world. And how does he show us that there's a spiritual world? By allowing us to dream. And that's why Adam, the word Adam, the etymology of Adam, the first human being, that was not strictly functioning on animal instinct, but was an amalgam, was a fusion between the most base instinct, nefesh behemoth, and the most celestial and divine, the neshama lokus, the divine, the godly soul. The first creation that God made was Adam, and he called it Adam because Adam, etymologically, according to Maharal, means from the word dimyon. Olam ha-dimyon, the world of imagination. Because only the human being could imagine. Just imagine. Animals cannot imagine. In MIT stands for Made in Thailand. And actually, MIT is Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And our Prime Minister of Israel, hopefully he'll stay Prime Minister. I don't know what's happening. It's funny because President of America is impeached. President of Israel brought up on charge. You can see we're living in really interesting times. Of course, Mr. Putin from the Soviet Union, from Russia, he's very, very disappointed with what happened with the impeachment. He said it, it's all fabricated. He's a very big supporter. Very interesting. But Netanyahu actually attended, Prime Minister Netanyahu actually attended. He's a very bright guy. He attended MIT. At MIT, they were actually doing studies whether or not dogs could dream. And because animals, the assumption and the philosophy in science was always that animals can't dream. They don't imagine things. So now they came up that, yes, dogs do dream. But you understand, what are they dreaming about? They're dreaming about the next bone they get, okay? They're dreaming about wagging their tails and mating with someone, with some other dog. They're not dreaming. They don't have an ambition. They don't have an aspiration. There's no depth. There's no profundity. There's no meaning behind their dreams and imagination. Only human being dreams about things and imagine things. That it's beyond its ken. That it's beyond its true perception or faculty. A person could dream about somebody that doesn't exist. A person could dream about somebody that did exist. A person could dream about somebody that will exist. I've met people, I've encountered people that survived the Holocaust that told me that the way that they survived the Holocaust was because a dead grandmother came to them and told them to hide in a certain place. A dead sister came to them and told them they should run away now, and they did. This is not something that you could create. This is not something you could fabricate. This is not something you could innovate. This is not something you could invent. There's a famous story about the great Rabbeinu Usher. Rabbeinu Usher, whose father was Rabbeinu Yaakov, the Tur, whose father was Rabbeinu Yechiel, one of the great Balei Tosfos, commentaries on the Talmud. So, when, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Rabbeinu Yechiel passed away. So he left his widow with children, and all of a sudden, he came to her in a dream. And he told her that there's going to be a pogrom. and they should run away that night, leave their house. And it was a persistent dream a few times during the night, and she listened to the dream, and they ran away, and they survived the pogrom. Other people were massacred. Okay? This is a recorded story. The Chasam Sofer, the great Chasam Sofer, Moshe Sofer, before his illustrious teacher, Rabbi Nosson Adler, passed away, he had a dream that 5 Sefer Torah, why the symbolism behind 5 is a different story, but 5 Sefer Torah, 5 Torah scrolls had disintegrated or which burned, whatever it was, and he knew that his teacher had passed away. So there's a lot of tremendous prophecy associated with dreams. And for us, again, it's a vista, it's a portal to a world that transcends. And that's why the word for imagination is dimyon. Adam is dimyon. The man has the power to imagine, to conceive things that don't exist in the physical world. An animal cannot conceive something because an animal is strictly, behema is Hebrew for animal. Right? Everybody familiar with that? Behema is Hebrew for animal. Which, according to Maral, it's a contraction of 2 words, which means ba-ma. What is in it? It is. Ba-ma. What is in it? It is. It means that an animal is genetically circumscribed. An animal is genetically, basically, limited to exactly to its instinct. It's preordained. Everything is orchestrated, everything is pre-engineered. The animal is pre-engineered. It's not going to conceive something beyond because the animal, and that's why the animal always is on its 4s, it means that it's gravitating towards the earthly. A human being is the pinnacle of God's creation, therefore a human being is Homo erectus, it's called, which means the human being is always straight. The human being is, the objective of the human being is to point towards the heavens. And therefore, thank you so much, thank you for the animal is strictly instinct, is strictly base, not to negate from the power of animals. Animals have wonderful powers. As a matter of fact, the olfactory sense of the dog has 100,000 times the power of the human being. That's why, I don't know if it's a SWAT team or other, police patrols, they employ dogs in their service. And animals have tremendous powers. Not to belittle, disparage animals, but animals are strictly physical, and therefore they cannot consider, they can't imagine another world. They can't imagine the world of ruchni or spiritual, but the human being could. That's a tremendous power that the human being has. And that's why the word for dream, chalom, is chalom. Which is chet lamed mem. Now if you remember the lamed is the tallest letter. It protrudes. Which makes, according to Kabbalah, according to Jewish mysticism, it means that part of the lamed is here in the terrestrial world, in the Olam Hagashmi, in the physical universe, but another part of the Lamed is ascending, which means that it breaks through the physical world and enters into the spiritual world. Chalom starts with a ches. A ches is 8. Ches, 8, is the number of transcendence, which means that 7, according to the Maral, 7 is the natural universe, 7 days a week, 7 notes on the piano, musical notes, 7 continents, 7 oceans, the world of the Gashmi, the world of the physical. 8 eclipses, 8 surpasses, 8 supersedes, 8 transcends. 8 is now the world of the spiritual. That's why the baby, a Jewish male baby, has his birth on the 8th day. That's why a korban, a sacrifice, was not allowed to be brought to the temple before it's 8 days old. And many different. That's why the Sukkos, the holiday of Sukkos, the 8th day is considered to be the most spiritual day. Sorry? Hanukkah. Oh. Of course. It's almost Hanukkah. Of course we're going to mention. That's why, of course, Hanukkah is 8 days, because the message of Hanukkah is rising above, is the message of being transcendental, that the Jews always rise above, no matter how daunting, no matter how ominous, no matter how insurmountable, no matter how invincible the situation, no matter how bleak the situation looks. The message of Hanukkah is that we can be victorious. We can rise above. We can succeed. It's an 8. And that's why cholem, the word for dream, is ches lamed mem. Listen to this amazing idea. Ches means time. The 8, it supersedes, it transcends time. 7 is the physical universe, 7 days. 8 means it's transcendental. A dream, you could see beyond time in a dream. Lamed represents the place. Remember the Lamed? It rises, it protrudes into a different sphere, into a different environment. It's like extragalactic. It goes beyond space. It goes into a totally, it's like, if you look at the Lamed, you won't believe it. It's like an antenna. It's like the satellite that connects the universe in space with the physical, but it even goes deeper because it goes into beyond the cosmos. It goes into beyond the earthly firmaments. It goes into the divine firmaments. And then finally, the last letter of cholem, or chalom, is a mem. A mem is the letter that's encased, that's square, the final mem. But this represents something cryptic. This represents a secret. Every dream that's a real dream, we'll see that many dreams are not real dreams. Many dreams are vanity. But a real dream has something that you cannot understand because it's still shrouded in mystery. There's still something to decode. There's still something to decipher. There's still something to demystify. And that's the final mem of the Chalom. Now I want to share with you a fascinating Gemara. Listen to the Gemara. The Gemara, the Talmud is in Tractate Sanhedrin, page Lamed. And this is what the Talmud says. The Talmud speaks about somebody whose father died and left him an inheritance. The problem is he had no idea where the inheritance was. Imagine that. By the way, there are people I know that go on Google almost every day, seeing if there is what's called something funds. What is it?
Unclaimed.
Unclaimed funds, exactly. Right? They're always looking, maybe I had a great aunt who left, I was next of kin, Instead of going, I tell the guy, go get a job. What's the matter with you? You're looking for the unclaimed funds, The poor guy, he thinks that he's going to get some instant inheritance. By the way, an amazing story talking about inheritance. Okay, there was a Jewish guy who was traveling on the highway, and he needed to use the bathroom. He had a Jewish prostate. Okay, anybody knows that once you reach a certain age, if you're up at night going to the bathroom like 16 times a night, and when you go in the car and you have to travel in the car, it becomes a nightmare. You wonder, why did Hashem create us? Why couldn't we have like the mun? And the Jews in the Midbar in the desert, they didn't have to go to the bathroom at all, right? But this guy, he had to use the bathroom desperately, so he's looking for a place to pull over. And, the Torah says when you got to go, you have to go, because otherwise it's an isser, it's a prohibition of Bal Tashaksu. Bal Tashaksu basically means that you're not allowed to, if you have Hashem created us with orifices, and I didn't say offices, or officers. Hashem created us with orifices, and Baruch Hashem, we have to thank Hashem every day that the orifices are not clogged. You don't have to call a plumber to unclog it, because listen, the fact is that Chas v'Chalila, I'll never forget, I was once in a hospital and I saw a woman that was screaming her lungs out in the hospital. She was running around in her hospital gown, and it was just a terrible sight to behold. And no one was giving her any attention. The doctors, nurses, everybody ignored her. So I said, well, help her. There's nothing we could do. So I've asked her, what's the matter? Turns out that she had a kidney stone, and therefore she could not use the bath. She could not urinate. And she was just in torturous pain, terrible, terrible pain. And after that I said, when we make a blessing, a lot of people, I know they're condescending about the blessing of Asher Yotzar. You used to leave the bathroom. When you're in a goyish, when you're in a gentle environment and you use the bathroom and then you go outside and you start talking to yourself, they're thinking like, what do you see in the bathroom there? What happened exactly? So it's a little awkward. So the best thing to do is just to put your hand over your mouth, or just pretend you're yawning or something. Say, so, you got to be inventive and creative over here, but you have to make a bracha. You have to thank Hashem. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, you could use the bathroom. It's such a, it's something that you should jump for joy that Baruch Hashem, if you could use the bathroom. Anyhow, so this guy needed the bathroom, makes a stop on the highway, and the only place that he could find is a funeral parlor. And it's not a Jewish funeral parlor, but listen, when you got to go, he goes to the funeral parlor, and they say, 1 second, you have to sign in. He says, listen, I'm not here for the funeral. They say, what do you mean? You're here, there's a funeral going on. And you have to sign in. And he looks, he says, well, I just need the bathroom, please. He says, no, I'm sorry, it's policy. We have protocol, strict protocol. If you come in this funeral parlor, you have to sign in. He says, okay, I'm bursting, but okay. So he goes ahead and he signs in and he realizes that, gee, now the guy didn't have too many friends because he's the only one signed in for the funeral. But he uses the bathroom and, and he gets back in his car, gets back on the highway, and he forgets about the whole incident. Well, apparently the incident didn't forget about him because a month or two passes, and he gets a letter in the mail. You know the story? Oh, it's an amazing story. So he gets a letter in the mail, and the mail says that he was bequeathed $1 million. And I said, from who? So he calls it, there's a lawyer, a letter and everything, and he calls up the lawyer. He says, he's a good, law-abiding, ethical Jew, and he says, listen, I think there's a mistake here. Not too many people, by the way, would give up $1 million and say they think there was a mistake here. And I'd say, of course. I had to be related somehow, Well, the fact is, my name is Chaim Shmuel Pipik, and his name was Christopher Donald, whatever, okay? But somehow we were related, of course, Somehow we were related. So he tries to figure out how we were related. But anyhow, he's very ethical, so he calls the lawyer, and the lawyer says, no, it's not a mistake. You see, because the man left in his will, he said when he dies, he didn't really know anybody. He says, but whoever, the few people, he did know a few people, and he says that whoever is so devoted, they come to his funeral, then he leaves his estate to them. So you signed in. You were at the funeral parlor. Apparently, we have your name. You signed in. We traced you down, and you get the $1 million. Imagine that. He got the $1 million, right? Because the lesson of the story is that everything is bashert, everything is providential in life, right? The fact that he signed in, the fact that he had to use the bathroom, the fact that he had to stop. A lot of times we get upset where we stop. According to the Baal Shem Tov, every place where you stop, Hamechin mitzadei gover. It's a blessing we say in the morning blessings. That God prepares the step of, thank you Hashem. Baruch atah Hashem HaKim HaChalam. Hamechin, bless you the Lord, Master of the universe. Hamechin mitzadei gover. You prepare the step of man. That means that we don't believe that anything is arbitrary, coincidental. We believe everything is from Hashem, providential. Everything's bashert. And if Hashem sends us to a certain place, the Baal Shem Tov says, and actually it's not only Baal Shem Tov, I think Reb Chaim Volozhin also said, that he was once traveling someplace and he saw a food mart, there was some kind of grocery, and he went ahead, he took an apple, and he said, I'm going to make a bracha, because it must be that I am here to elevate the sparks, to take the nitzotzos, to make the nitzotzos HaKadusha, to make sparks of holiness. Okay? But anyhow, so here's a story about a guy that got an inheritance, and listen to the story. So, the person was distraught because he understood that his father left him inheritance. But he didn't know where to find it. So this master of dreams comes to him in a dream. A whole different discussion. Why is it described as the master of dreams? But he had a dream. I'm sorry, that he says, the Gemara says, that it's so, he gives him the exact sum. He tells him, yeah, your father left you $2.5 million, whatever it was. And not only that, I'll tell you where it is. If you go under the bridge, your father was very, very, very paranoid, and he hid it in a place that no one would ever imagine. But go under the horizontal bridge, and you'll find it over there. And guess what? But not only that, but the Baal Chalom, in the dream, it tells him that also Shal Meiser Sheni Haim, but there's a problem. Because all that money, all those funds that are supposed to be dispersed and allocated, you think, for you, they're really tithe money. And therefore, there's a whole bunch of restrictions you have to have. In Jerusalem, it's Meiser Sheni, second tithe. So, now the guy was... So, first he doesn't take it so seriously, right? But... the Gemara says after that, Zohaya Maisa, he goes to under the bridge. I mean, I don't know exactly where it was. That's my own interpretation. It could have been anywhere. It could have been in a safe vault somewhere in Flushing Savings Bank, whatever it is, And he finds the exact sum that was specified in the dream in the exact place. So now he goes to the rabbis. He says, rabbis, what should I do? Everything was true about the dream. But do I have to give Meiser? Is it mine, or is it Kodesh? Is it holy? And this is what they said, Divrei Chalomus. It's only words or dreams. It's futile. And therefore, Lo Malav Lo Meridin. Lo Malav Lo Meridin literally means it doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. In other words, that has no consequence. You don't have to, because it was from a dream, you don't have to pay attention to it. Now, what do you mean? If he didn't pay attention to the dream, he would have never gotten his fortune. He would have never gotten his inheritance. So obviously the dream had significance. How could the rabbi say, L'mal v'lo ramida, that dreams are futile? Now again, if he ate something that's going to cause him to dream about $2.5 million, I don't know, like maybe filet mignon, I don't know what you could, eat that cause you to dream about $2 million. I think you could discount that reality that was from food, or was he thinking about it beforehand? Again, the reason why Chazal, the rabbis say that dreams are basically futility and vanity is because most of the time, 99% of the time, a person dreams about things that are in his conscious or subconscious. And therefore, he was thinking about it. Whether he was thinking about today, yesterday, whatever it was, but he was thinking about it. And therefore, halachically, where we spoke about you're supposed to fast if you have a very bad dream, if you even thought about it the day before, according to many poskim, then it still has the status of that you were thinking about it. You could trace it to that thought.
Not only that, it's also what you're talking that day.
Right. Exactly. Now, by the way, if you dream about somebody, that something terrible will happen to somebody, then that person doesn't have to dream, but you do have to dream. That's halacha. The dreamer has to dream, not the victim, not the potential victim. He doesn't have to fast. Okay? It's the one that had the dream. So if you dream that somebody else's teeth fell out, it could be that you have to fast on their behalf, but they don't have to fast. Oh. Somebody asked me last week, I don't know why they thought I'm this mystic, but somebody came over to me and said that they want to know about somebody had a dream that they have holes in their teeth. Okay, now I asked them, I said, do they like candies? No? If all they do is eat candies, and they are going to get holes in their teeth. That's where the cavity is. But he wants to know if it's the same thing as teeth falling out. I don't think so. But I told him to ask a more, experienced authority in the world of dreams. But I don't think that would be an issue. But here's the concern. That if you look at the Gemara in Tractate Nedarim, page Ches, which speaks about vows, there it says that if somebody has a dream that he was put into a nidoi means a ban, excommunication. There it says that he has to take it very seriously. He should fast, and he should engage in penitence and tshuva. He has to take it very seriously.
By the community excommunication?
Excommunication, yeah. So the question is, why? How do you reconcile then? This Gemara says that even though it was verified, he had a dream that $2.5 million that would be in the safe deposit box, right, in Sovereign Bank, a Santander Bank, and it was in the exact location, it was the exact specified sum, and yet when it comes to the fact that his father, the Baal Chalomos, the master of dreams, told him that it has to be tithed, he doesn't have to tithe it because dreams have no consequence. And yet if he has a dream that he's excommunicated, or also the halacha is, the law is that if you have a dream that you made a vow, do you know that you have to actually go ahead and be absolved of your vow? It's a whole process, the whole ceremony to be absolved from your vow. But what do you mean? I thought dreams don't elevate and don't demote. They don't mila, they don't morid. There's no consequence. So how do you reconcile this? It's not my question, it's Tashbitz's question. Tashbitz asked this question. And Tashbitz says that when it comes to money, so you're muhsik. That means that possession is 9/10 of the law. Right? You cannot extract, you cannot take money away from somebody who's muhsik, who has possession of money, based on a doubt. And therefore, since we're doubtful whether or not that dream was an authentic, in other words, it really came from a holy source, therefore, based on a suffix, based on that type of doubt, it's hamotz mechaver l'raya. That you have to, somebody that wants to deduct from somebody, somebody that wants to extract from somebody, somebody that wants to withhold from somebody funds, you have to bring proof. And therefore, when it comes to money, we will not go according to a dream. However, when it comes to Isser, when it comes to prohibition, when it comes to something serious, then we will go according to a dream. That's what Tashbit says. The Shalosh Tshuvas Siva Sion, he says differently. He says that when a person's put into a nidoi, when a person's put into some kind of excommunication, then, or a person's banned from the community, or even a vow, people don't realize the severity of the vow. I don't want to talk about the severity of the vow. Because people go ahead and make commitments all the time. Now, very religious people always say, bli neder, which means, I'm doing it, I'm saying it, but I don't mean to, make a solemn vow here. I don't mean to make a promise. No, I'm not making a promise. But a vow is very, very, very severe. Very severe. Is very, very critical. And the reason for that is because what defines our humanity is our ability to articulate, our ability to talk. Mafli lasos, according to some opinions, the Pella, the wondrous creation of man, the amalgam, the fusion between the fact that we function on nefesh behemoth, animal instinct, and nefeshama lokusa, divine soul, is a fact that we could articulate. Animals could communicate, yes. They can make sounds, they can have utterances. But they can't articulate something coherent, something intelligible. They're limited. Only a human being could talk, and the decibels, of course, an animal could emit decibels also, but a human being could say something which can have repercussions across the continents, across the world. And therefore, when a human being violates his speech, he's defacing, he's denigrating his humanity. And therefore, the Torah says, "Lo yachol devaroi kechol yotzer," that don't profane, don't secularize, don't trivialize your word. If you say something, stick to it. Kechol hayotzer piv yaseh, whatever you say, do. But the Chavetz Chaim, of course, his famous interpretation is that God promises that if a person is very, very, very fastidious, a person is very careful about his word, not to profane his word, then kechol hayotzer piv yaseh, whatever he says, God. It's a different interpretation. It's not that God is telling us whatever you say you should do, but God promises that He will deliver, He will execute on your promise. That if you say something, you give somebody a blessing, then it will be fulfilled. Can you imagine that? If you're careful about your words and don't break or violate a promise or commitment that you make, that if you say something to somebody, you wish somebody, God willing, you should have success, or God willing, you should find the right one, whatever it is, then it could actually be fulfilled. So we have to be careful of what we say, but God forbid, a million times the Talmud says that if somebody breaks a promise, if he makes a serious oath, then the repercussions are terrible. Death in his family, terrible things. Chas v'shalom, terrible things. So therefore, a nidoi, a shamta, is an excommunication where a person is basically made into a pariah and ostracized. It's very, very, very serious, because we say that when in the lowly court over here, when a person is excommunicated, then they're also excommunicated in Shemayim, God forbid, in the heavens. And therefore, it's considered to be very critical. So the Siva Sion, the Shal Shuva Siva Sion says that the reason why, listen to this, the reason why the Gemara Nedarim Daf Ches says that a dream could be consequential versus the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Lamed that says that a dream is totally inconsequential, is because when it comes to things of life and death, of pikuach nefesh, you have to listen to it. The Gemara in Sanhedrin was talking about money. Now, as much as we love money, so many Americans, Western culture, and also the Soviet culture also love money. A lot of cultures love money, right? Put a big emphasis on money. But money is inconsequential, because it doesn't have a bearing on your life. And therefore, if you dream about it, then you will not go ahead and act upon it halachically for psak din. However, when it comes to something else, when it comes to an oath that you made in your dream, when it comes to a nidoi, potential excommunication, then it has to be acted upon, because that is potential pikuach nefesh. And that's how they reconcile these two Gemaras. So I think that it's very, very important to stress the fact that most dreams that we have could be discounted. Most dreams are trivial. Most dreams are benign. Most dreams are things that we perceived, things that we pondered, things that we ruminated, that we thought of during the day, that was on our conscious or subconscious, and therefore it has no real bearing. However, there are exceptions to that rule, and that we understand that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us Adam, meaning from the dimyon, from the koyach ha-dimyon, from the power to be able to imagine another world, to tell us that we're not just in this world, that there's a whole world that exists that we one day will be privy to. And that's the Olam, Ha'elyon, the upper worlds. That's where we have accountability towards. And therefore, this world over here is an antechamber. It's a prosdor. Prosdor means that's the lobby, it's the vestibule. And it's a breeding ground. It's a laboratory. But ultimately, there's another world. And how do we know that there's another world? Because again, we are limited in this world, whether it's space or time. But the chalom, has the ches, the lamed, and mem, to tell us that there are times when Hashem allows us to transcend. It's time, the ches, and go beyond our sphere, the terrestrial, to go into the shemaimi, into the heaven, and that's the lamed. But mem, ultimately, these are things that are still beyond mem. It's still sealed. It's beyond our hasagos. It's beyond our thoughts. So our job, according to the Panovitcher used to say this, Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahneman, he was a dreamer. He always dreamed. When he came to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel, he was bereft of his family. His entire community, Panovitch in Europe, was decimated by the Nazis.